All right, my name is Lauren Schwartz. I lead the enterprise business at Fivetran, and I'll give our special guest an opportunity to introduce himself, but I just want to set the stage for what we're going to talk about today. Those of you who came to this conference in person are here because you want to learn about data and AI and ML, and ultimately that's a great destination for all of us to envision, but the journey to get there is the really challenging part. And I think all of us in the data industry know that if we are putting garbage in, we're going to get garbage out in our analysis. So as much as we want Gen AI, it's really about the steps to getting the right data in the right format with the right resiliency in from the beginning. So that is what Edward and I are going to talk about. And I'm going to hand it over to Edward to introduce himself.
Very nice to meet everyone. I am the CEO and co-founder of Catalyst. What's interesting is that, maybe just a quick show of hands, who here is a developer background? Okay.
All right.
Who here is starting their own company or looking to start their own company? And who here is just on the business side, sales, revenue, investor? Okay, cool.
Just on the business side.
Yeah. Cool, wonderful. So, in a nutshell, Catalyst unifies all of your customer data. So we unify Salesforce, Zendesk, Jira, Databricks, any type of warehouse data, anywhere a customer data lives, we unify it into a singular view. So for us, just imagine you are looking to understand your customer adoption. Instead of going to 10 different places, you go to one and you understand exactly what's going on with your customer base. So thank you for having me. I'm super excited for this.
Yeah, so we thought we'd spend the day, or just the session, talking a little bit about how Fivetran and Catalyst and Databricks work together to enable exactly the business outcomes that Edward was describing. Fivetran is an automated data movement platform, and so we partner very closely with Catalyst to enable them to accomplish some of the things you're going to hear about today and some of the stories we'll share today. But the plan here is I'm going to ask some questions to Edward. We're going to have a conversation. We'll take questions from the audience, and we'll go from there. So tell us a little bit more about your organization, about you, about your team.
Yeah, I started this company at a company called DigitalOcean. So for the developers out there, you probably have spun up a Droplet before. And during my time there, my CEO asked me, hey, Edward, I need you to find me all the customers that are not using our tool, and I need you to figure out whether they're healthy or not. So that was a big challenge, and I decided to build my own tool, very crazy idea. And after building our own tool, we tapped into all the data sources, and this was 10 years ago, well before all the things that are going on in big data and ML. And long story short, a couple of people told me, hey, if you were to build this for the mass market, we'll be your first customer. So I decided to quit my job. My wife was definitely freaking out at the time, and I convinced a couple of people to give us some money, and now we are one of the fastest growing data providers in the world. We have companies, gaming companies like Unity. We have enterprise companies like Cisco. And like I said, we allow you to understand your customers in a singular view. And I think from a data perspective, right now is probably the most exciting time. I think there's a lot of companies thinking about how to better understand their data, how to build tooling to expose that data, and how do you actually leverage that data to create ROI for your work, your business, the company that you're trying to launch. So that's something that we're very excited about as well.
I love it, and I heard you mention big data, which is a term we've been throwing around for a decade or more, and now we've evolved into this language around AI and ML, and I'm curious, how do you see those concepts evolving in the sphere of the customer-oriented space?
Yeah, I think now data is all about speed. I think big data, ML, AI, I think the biggest change is speed. I'm sure everyone in this room has seen everything that's possible with OpenAI. Just a quick random story. I got really sick a couple weeks ago. It was something, just a freak accident, random, and the doctor says, I don't really know what this is and what the cure is for. That's like the last thing you want to hear from a professional doctor in New York City. So I was able to go online and run and find other people with similar symptoms and run it through a large language model. And what really turned out was that we were able to get cures for myself. And I was following actual studies, and the ability to analyze data in one succinct motion in a couple of minutes, I think, has been the biggest game changer. So in addition to business and personal use cases, I think that's been the most interesting thing.
I think healthcare and just accessibility of information in general is probably one of the most exciting trends in this space. We've been hearing about it a lot today, and I think for me, it's been really interesting to see how, whether it enables you to make information accessible or allows people with disabilities to be able to access education, like these are all the things that I think ultimately we're hoping our customers can achieve for the world. So I love that example. What do you think the biggest hurdles are in the way of achieving your vision?
So our biggest hurdle that we've seen as a customer data platform and revenue platform is a lot of businesses don't really know what they're looking for. So they come to Catalyst and they're like, hey, we're excited to unify all of our data, but we don't really know what does our best customer look like. We don't really know what does an unhealthy customer look like. And we have access to all this data. We want to know more, but they don't even know where to start. So I think as folks that are out there that are building tooling, like helping existing businesses understand, like what does a representative customer look like? What does a user look like? If you're targeting the developer audience, what does the highest adoption rates for your best user look like? I think those are all critically important. So I think the biggest hurdle is, yes, you have all this data, but you honestly don't even know where to start. And I think the one danger of AI and LLM is just you're so dependent upon it that you're just being told what to do. And even if you did have a perspective, you end up changing your perspective. So I think that's the number one thing that we see with our own customers is that they don't know where to start, and actually they're open to just trusting whatever we tell them, which is, I think, both exciting and scary at the same time.
Yeah, but ultimately what they're looking for probably changes over time, the more information they're able to gather and actions they're allowed to test and take, right?
Yeah, I think if they're, we're gonna get the initial data set and we're gonna train the model, but I think we still would like their input, but there are certainly customers that are like, hey, we don't even know what we're looking for. Whatever you tell us is a great start for us. So I think that's probably the biggest risk is I think businesses are just starting to get through digital transformation. There's great organizations like Databricks that are making data extremely accessible. And I think for us, I think we're just in the beginning of that stages for many businesses.
Yeah, it's a fun place to be and a really fun time to be in this place. And also really, you were talking about that digital transformation. We see that with a lot of our joint customers with Catalyst and with Databricks is this intersection of privacy and customized experiences for customers, right? So our joint customers are looking to better understand how their customers are interacting with their platform and what their preferences are and how to meet their needs at the right time and the right way. And yet it's critical not only to meet them with the wrong. I mean, who's been on LinkedIn, for example, and LinkedIn says, how would you like to be the next person at this company that has nothing to do with what you like? And you're like, why don't you know me? But at the same time, people are very private about their information. So I think my question to you is, how do you balance the trade-offs between PII, data governance, and the process to ensure that you have the right data to make those right decisions, but also respect people's privacy?
Yeah, we actually are uniquely interesting. Our business, we have limitless access to our customers' Salesforce data. So we actually know when a business is not doing well before they even know it, really. So we see all their churn data. We also have their data warehouse data, so we're starting to see that their adoption rates are trending downward. So as the economy was tanking, I think Catalyst had an insider view that a lot of our customers were leaving them. So that was not a fun moment and time for us to see that data, but it is the reality in the world that we're living in. So and now our customers are asking us, hey, the customers that have churned, can you proactively tell us which ones are starting to look like that? So, in order for us to tell them which customers are starting to look like that, we have to be able to have access to their data. So I think it depends on the purpose, right? I think a lot of generative AI is like your willingness to share data to generate the outcome that you want. And I think, especially in this economy, I think everyone here probably knows people who have gotten laid off and seen businesses struggling to hit revenue targets. The most important thing right now is to better understand the customers that you already have, because you spent so much to acquire them. They're the only ones that are going to give you more revenue. They're the only ones that are going to use more of your services. So we feel like we have an opportunity to be prescriptive, and our customers at least are very generous with their data because they want to learn more.
Yeah, so you're working with your customers to optimize the experience for their customers, so that they can drive retention and growth, et cetera. I'm curious, how do you think about retention and growth of your own customers? What are you doing to optimize their experience, and how are you doing that from a technology perspective?
Well, this is where we lose a lot of people, because Catalyst, we are a customer revenue platform in which we look at our customers and then we look at our customers' customers, and that can go on forever. So we obviously dog food our own tool, and I think the best part about it is you want to know which of your customers are going to leave you before they leave you. I think a lot of people wish they had that in probably relationships, just like knowing which of your friends are going to leave you and or no longer be your friend before that actually happens. So I think for us, understanding which of your customers are not using your tool, which of your customers are no longer going to spend as much as they used to, it's valuable information right now. And I think from the more technical perspective, this is where product teams, how they use our tool is they want to understand the product and the features that they're building. Is it actually used by the customer? I think a lot of times you ship a lot of code, you design a lot of new features, but on the engineering team, you don't really know whether that tool is effective or not. So I think we not only have business stakeholders that use our tool, we also have engineers that use that tool. So super accessible when it comes to data availability and how to drive decisions from it.
Can you share an example of how you've used Catalyst to improve your customers' experience?
Yeah, so number one thing is Catalyst, we can say, show me all customers or any user who hasn't used this new feature that we just launched, and they are upcoming for renewal in the next 90 days, automatically send them an email from me as the CEO. That email, well, I guess this is recorded, but I've already said it. That email doesn't really come from me. It comes from the system. It looks and feels like it's coming from Edward, but we know exactly when is the right moment to reach out to a customer. That's why when a customer replies, it obviously comes to me. But that's just a natural use case that I think is applicable to everyone in this room. It's like, show me any user of my application that hasn't logged in the past 5 days that is my exact target market. Automatically reach out to them and say, hey, how can I be helpful? So I think that's the biggest thing that AI and data can do for businesses or developers or leaders in general is, how do you talk to your end users at the right moment in time where they want to interact with you?
But it still comes back to how you get there, because so much of what we talk about is this ideal destination. And you started this company, you haven't always been able to leverage that type of automation. Tell us a little bit about the journey to get to where you are.
Yeah. It took a long time. I think we had almost 7 years of building and accumulating that data. We're built on top of Databricks and Fivetran, and specifically Fivetran. I think one of the things I talk about is we ingest with Salesforce data. We have access to Jira ticket data, Zendesk ticket data. We have access to Mixpanel, Pendo, all the product telemetry data. And we used to build those integrations one by one. It was very, very time consuming. We'd have to upkeep each data model. We'd have to figure out documentation. Each engineer would have to manage a scope. And because of Fivetran, thank you very much, you guys have enabled us to add data integrations very, very quickly. And the big customers that come to us, especially the enterprise customers, they have 20 plus integrations, some tools that we're not even familiar with. So their expectation is, hey, if we're paying you hundreds of thousands of dollars, we don't want to figure out how to put data in. You have to have tools that can help us pull that data out. So We've built many integrations through Fivetran that has enabled us to access that data. So we meet where the customers are versus the other way around, and I think it did take a little bit, but ever since Fivetran signed up and has been the backbone of our system, that's been a lot faster.
And what was it like before you brought Fivetran on board?
It was a lot of pain for our engineering team. As CEO, I'm generally not thrilled to be in engineering meetings because I have to be in a lot of meetings, but a lot of discussion was complaints about, hey, Edward, you keep asking us to build more and more integrations. You keep telling us that you signed this big customer. This was in the early days when I used to do sales myself. So obviously as CEO, anytime you sign an account, you go into the room and you run in, you say, hey guys, drop everything, build this for me. And anytime a customer says, hey, I need another integration, I would run into the room or a Zoom room and tell everyone, hey, drop everything, go build this integration for us. So that no longer is the case. We're much bigger now. I'm never allowed in engineering stand-ups, but it's been a game changer for us.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. I'm sure everyone liked the change of strategy every 5 minutes.
Yeah, so you could put down the Fivetran tagline, which is keeping CEOs out of engineering meetings.
Okay, you heard it here first. Show of hands, who has lived through that experience where in order to accomplish what you're trying to do, you're constantly rebuilding or asking someone else to rebuild pipelines or connectors or fixing broken connectors, right? So I'm looking around and I see this is resonating with folks and we live it too, right? This is why we're in this business. I think what's really fun about being in the type of business we're in, right, in this data infrastructure world is nobody actually wants to work on this problem. It's really painful, and some people would call it mundane. And the reality is, when you can remove that level of frustration and inefficiency from your customers and your customers' customers, we really get the opportunity to help them celebrate the actual business impact that they're having. So it's really fun to talk to you about this. And I also think what's pretty cool, and maybe we should explain this further, is how Catalyst uses Fivetran, because you're using Fivetran not only internally for your own information, but also for your customers. So it's our Powered by Fivetran solution, basically white labeled into your technology.
Yeah, I think for our customers, they don't see or hear Fivetran. I think they just feel the magic of it, which is, hey, I have data, and a company, a publicly traded company as an example, they have quarterly earnings. Like they have to know 3-4 quarters in advance what's going on with their customer trends. And their data generally lives in 25 different places. So the fact that they can log into one tool and understand from one visualization layer everything that is happening within 20 sets of data is the value that they're feeling that we're able to build on top of Fivetran. And anytime they ask us to add more, like that's also the value add. So I think that's the biggest thing that this market is feeling right now is everyone is under pressure to better understand the customers that they already have, and they don't have the time. I think time is also, of the essence, and that every quarter you don't do something, every quarter you don't fix a feature, every quarter you don't ship a product, every quarter that you ship something and it doesn't land, there's a massive, massive trickle-down effect that could have detrimental impacts to your business. So, hate for it to be doom and gloom, but that's the reality right now.
Well, it's a good starting place.
Yeah.
We always talk about what's the current state and what are the negative consequences of that current state, and what you're describing is sort of sitting in our moment of pain of this is what life is like today, and we need a tool like Catalyst powered by a tool like Fivetran to help us better understand and serve our customers is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think it's great because I don't really have to explain what Catalyst does. I don't think there's any, for those of you that work at big organizations, I don't think any of your executive team, there's no CEO out there that says, hey, let's go out there and sell more businesses. Let's go and hire millions of salespeople because budgets are wide open, and let's just go find new revenue. That's just something that no one's hearing right now. So for us, it's a problem that speaks for itself right now, unfortunately. Hopefully one day we're out of it, but that's the time that we're in. But it is a very, very positive thing to now be able to get your data very quickly and make decisions off it. I think big part of AI is being able to move quickly and make decisions quickly and be able to take information and instead of you having to digest it, having the system do it for you. And I think that's a big part of what we're doing for the market.
And you and I have spoken a lot about how we serve our enterprise customers, and in particular, these big enterprises who have had decades of evolutions of different types of data sources and databases and just endless years of collected information that they need to act on just to understand trends over time. When you're serving your enterprise customers who have really large amounts of data, how do you think you're uniquely positioned to make enterprises with the complexity of their business successful?
Yeah, when a publicly traded company comes to us, they have data sets that are from like decades ago, and they have new data sets that their more modern team have built and accumulated. And their expectation is you have to combine both of those catalysts. You have to organize that for us, and you have to clean that data for us. So that is a tall, tall order. And some of that data is outdated, some of that data is inaccurate, some of that data requires reconciliation. So one of the things that we do very effectively is allowing you to select which data that you want to pull in. So instead of you saying, hey, just give me everything, we'll say, hey, you should probably have a good understanding, and this is your one-time opportunity in your life to get to re-pick which data sets that you actually care about and pull those data sets in. So we have a very clean user experience to be able to drive that, and I think that's what enterprise companies want right now, is they kind of need some hand-holding. They want to be told what to do. They want to be told how to modernize their data stack. And that's the approach that we take is, yes, they have a lot of data, but we're there to help them clean it up and also be more targeted in what they're looking for.
Yeah, that's great. So we've been talking about current state versus future state. You know what you're accomplishing for our joint customers today. What do you see evolving over the next couple of years in terms of what can be possible for the customer experience?
Yeah, I think what's really exciting that Fivetran and Databricks is enabling us to do, which is before you go into your next meeting, instead of you having to recap and write what happened in your last meeting with customer, that document is already filled for you. And that saves you countless hours of having to prepare meetings with customers. Your ability to just say, hey, show me all customers that are in New York City that haven't used feature X that is someone that I should talk to. That automatically carries down that list. So I think the speed and ease of being able to find the data that you need is what everyone's looking for right now. The experience that you get with Google for consumers should be the experience that you get for businesses. And I think that's really where I see the future going in customer experience, is that the delightfulness and the speed of which you're getting the results that you want is accessible for businesses, of especially enterprise customers. And that's just not something that they're used to.
Yeah, I really liked what Ali said this morning in the keynote around generative AI, and specifically that the future of coding is not in a coding language, but in your mother tongue language.
Yeah.
Because that's how we communicate with other human beings, and that's how we run our businesses.
And even BI tools that promise you the world in which you have limitless data at your fingertips, it still requires a data engineer to model it out. It still requires somebody who knows where the skeletons are hidden to create dashboards for you. So your ability to just single thread it just by typing in language that you're used to speaking is something that I don't think we've ever had access to, and that's possible now.
I love it. So in terms of enterprise, we were talking about our enterprise customers. What challenges are you seeing today with our joint customers running into with data and AI and trying to wrangle data, whether it's from multiple historical legacy sources or whether it's from mergers where you're trying to bring old systems and new systems together? A use case that we see a lot at Fivetran is data stack modernization and also data centralization. And so I know you are able to leverage those use cases to help your customers get closer to their customers, but what are the big data-related challenges, and how can the likes of Fivetran and Databricks solve them?
Yeah, I think beyond just having so many data sources, one of the biggest things that we see from enterprise customers is, having so much outdated data. Like they are struggling to understand even what some of their own data sets mean. So I think being able to quickly filter down complicated sets of data, being able to help them do that without them having to figure it out, I think that's going to be the biggest game changer. We're hearing that from our enterprise customers right now. I said, we have 20 years worth of data here, and you just helped us figure it out. This is the core segment of customers that we should go after. These are the core users that are actually using the functionality we have. These are the actual Zendesk and Jira tickets that matter, that are relevant to what we're seeing right now. So I think the segmentation and filtering of information is probably the biggest thing besides just unification of hundreds of different sources that they have data from.
You make it sound very easy, but it's not.
No, certainly not easy, but I think over time, I think that's the one advantage that we have is we've been doing this for 7 years, and I think a lot of companies, especially for developers, like they think, hey, generative AI allows me to just start building things and creating magic, but I think it does have some key advantages when you've been sitting on a trove of data for almost a decade, and I think it gives you that flexibility to know how to leverage AI, and I think that's one advantage that we've been able to take advantage of.
And can you share a little bit about how partnering with Databricks and partnering with Fivetran enables you to accomplish that?
Yeah, I think prior to Databricks and Fivetran, like we weren't focused on AI because that just wasn't possible. I think we had such large data sets that even of our own customers. So the same problem that I said for our customers had, we had that same problem. Every time a customer brings a ton of data over to us, that's more data that we have. So even for ourselves and understanding our own customer data, that's a possibility today. So I think the best advice that I can give for others that are thinking about data is you have to always problem solve for your own customer base, and that's what we do every single day is we use our tool to better understand how you guys use our tool, and that's the way that we are very prescriptive with our customers is by the time it gets to our customers, we've already done it for ourselves.
I love it, and it's not easy to do. So I just love to hear, I always, especially in interviews, like to ask about mistakes folks have made along the way. What sort of stumbles did you experience before you got to where you are at Catalyst?
Personal mistakes from a company level and founder level. I would say if you ever are looking to start a company, I would say the biggest mistake that I've ever made was hiring purely on talent. I think early on we knew we were going to be a big data-focused company, so my co-founder and I said, look, let's go hire just the best data engineers, period. And we looked at just folks that came from Google and Facebook, and we're just like, hey, these are excellent data engineers. And what we failed to realize is you can also hire great talent, the best of the best talent, but also people that care about your mission and vision. And I think that is a hard lesson because it set us back a few years by just hiring based on talent because they didn't really care about the end user experience. It was all about the right technology, the right technical decisions versus the right decision that created the mission and vision. So, without naming names, that was a catastrophic mistake, is hiring the wrong people early on. And we carefully vet people for both sides of that house now.
I love it. Yeah, we've gone through something similar. I'm curious, before we go on, show of hands, how many Catalyst customers do we have in the room today? Yeah, we have one. But that means we have lots of opportunity to introduce Catalyst to more folks. How about Fivetran? How many Fivetran customers do we have in the room? Well, hi. I am so glad you're all here today so we can learn together. We do want to, in a minute, open it up to some Q&A, but just to close this out, I'd love your take on how our data community can best leverage the partnership between Fivetran and Catalyst and Databricks to accomplish the business outcomes that are associated with AI, ML, and everything we've talked about today.
Yeah, I think the closeout that I would give everyone is that we all work at companies, and customer experience and the success of your customers is the responsibility of everyone in the company. It's the responsibility of the go-to-market team, it's the responsibility of the engineering team, it's the responsibility of the product team, it's the responsibility of the finance team. There is not a single person in the company where the success of your customers is not important to you. And I think every business is starting to realize that, and I think there's a tremendous opportunity for every group and every department to work together to drive that effort. So I think that's the thing that I'm most excited about, is that right now is a time where people understand that, and Catalyst, Databricks, and Fivetran really make that possible, which is providing that data to anyone in the company. Like, I'm always very excited when an engineer logs into Catalyst and says, hey, I want to understand that last feature that I just shipped. Who's using it? How are they using it? How often are they using it? So that's a technical stakeholder that cares about the end user experience. And truthfully, in the past a decade ago, I rarely saw that. But today, I feel like even the most technical leaders are very customer driven. And I think that's super exciting for this generation and the next generation.
You know what's really fun about this industry is we're all each other's customers, and so we get to experience the experience of being your customer. Like, I'm a Catalyst customer, and at Fivetran, Catalyst is a Fivetran customer. We're both Databricks customers. Databricks is a customer of Fivetran. In fact, Databricks uses Fivetran to consolidate their marketing data. So all of us in this room today, historically, Databricks would run that off of more of a siloed legacy warehouse. Now they're able to leverage their lakehouse because of their partnership with Fivetran. And what they do is they measure event attendance, for example. So after this conference, we'll see how it's turned out and also what impact that has. But from a Catalyst and Fivetran perspective, we also get this great opportunity to get visibility into white space for our customers, right? So we're talking about marketing, we're talking about attendees. For us in sales at Fivetran, it's critical for us to see, well, what have we not talked to our customers about, or where do our customers have the most propensity to add value? And so it really helps direct and guide our conversations. And ultimately for Catalyst, for Fivetran, for Databricks, this type of modern data stack enables us to continuously improve the way that we interact with our customers, and I think you've really demonstrated that today.
Yeah, I love it, thank you. And I think I don't view it as just customers. I think end users of your product are the most important people, and just understanding and being able to deeply view their workflows is super important. And you said the word customer just probably 7 or 8 times in that explanation. It's the most valuable thing. It's what pays everyone's bills. It's what makes your application run. It's why you have an application as your end user and customer. So yeah, thank you for having me today.
You bet. So we'll open it up to Q&A. I'm told I'm not allowed to take a question without the mic. So mic coming your way, sir. Thank you for raising your hand.
Thank you. When you spoke about companies wanting you to combine old and new data earlier, did you use any sort of data linkage solution that Fivetran helped you with, or are you using another solution for this?
I would say a lot of that is more on the tools that we integrate with. So Fivetran has really enabled us to have limitless access to a ton of integrations. So a lot of the tools that we have do a very good job of, as an example, Salesforce, there's old legacy Salesforce data, there's new Salesforce instances. So because we're able to build a ton of integrations, anything that Salesforce can handle, we now have access to Mixpanel, we now have access to Pendo, we now have access to Segment. So most organizations, there are just so many different ways to get that data in. So before, when we only had Salesforce, we would have to tell customers, hey, some of your data that's sitting there, we actually can't pull that in. But now that Fivetran has enabled us to build all these integrations, any data model that their data is sitting at, we're able to pull that in from new integrations. So that's been our strategy, is we just now are picking up integrations on a monthly basis. So before it would take 6 months to a year to build an integration. Now it's a couple of weeks of effort, and I think that's how we've been able to really pull it in. It's been instrumental for our business because data for us is everything. Like customer data at all levels is housed everywhere. So hopefully that answers your question.
You know, it comes up a lot as companies, especially when we're working with big enterprise companies who are doing mergers. In fact, I just met with a potential customer, a new customer of Databricks today, potential Fivetran customer, and they just merged two companies in the insurance space, and they have a totally different stack, right? But then, you know, the insurance space is highly regulated, and there's a lot of legacy in there, and so there's decades of information that lives in different formats in different locations, and what they're looking to do is replicate their Oracle database data among other big database collections of data, so it's high volume. They want a continuous replication to make sure that they're able to act on real-time information, real-time, as real as is necessary when you're trying to approve an insurance quote. But again, the biggest challenge is not only the actual technical capabilities and getting them to work to play nicely together, but it's also the humans and getting the humans to play nicely together, and that so many of us have built our careers on a certain stack, right? I grew up at Google, and then I was at Segment and at Fivetran, and some people grew up at Informatica, and they're experienced in Oracle, and they're, you know, and so when it's something that you've been spending a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades of your career on, sometimes it's hard to make that change. And one of the things we talked about was we've seen it fail too many times when companies try and just pull the ripcord and just say, okay, we're doing a hard cutoff and we're moving over from this legacy data stack to this modern data stack. So we see it done in stages a lot of times, and that's how it accomplishes 2 things. One, it accomplishes a little bit of a fail-safe where you're protecting your data and making sure that you're able to replicate it safely, but it also helps with the emotional hurdle of changing the paradigm with which you access your data and optimize your business. So it's a really, I think legacy mergers and acquisitions are really interesting from a data perspective.
That's a really good point. Honestly, getting the data in is probably the easiest part. Sometimes it's just knowing where to even look for that data. So there's always that one person that works in that one department and that one floor, and they're the only person in the entire company that knows where the dead bodies are, and the dead bodies happens to be the one thing that they must have inside visibility into. So a lot of times it's just about finding that person and getting that data model out of their head. So the integration part, honestly, has been very, very seamless as our data model has evolved because of Databricks and Fivetran. But sometimes it's that human level that we just have to find to help us better understand what data we're looking for.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. Other questions? We've got a young man in the back.
Thanks for the insightful discussion. So I got 2 questions. First one, since I guess you use both Fivetran and Databricks, and you know, at current economic environment, companies has pressure to cut costs. So do you have concern like the price of Fivetran or Databricks is too high? The second one, do you hear your customer complain or concern your service, the price is too high?
Well, I mean, since you put me on a spot, you're going to make me negotiate with Fivetran right on stage. No, I think what's interesting is, yes, our own costs are increasing, right? So like the more data that our customers bring in, like our customers bring customer data, and they're bringing it from data sources like Salesforce, Jira, Zendesk, Mixpanel, Pendo. They're bringing so much data. And each customer that brings that data over, it increases our footprint, it increases our cost. So I think pricing model is going to change dramatically over the next couple of years, I think, if not now, which is you have to price based on consumption, but also based on ROI. So for us, that's something that we do for our own customers is we'll charge you based on the number of customers that we manage for you. So the more customers that you bring over to Catalyst that we manage, we're going to charge you for that. And that means you're finding value. It means that you're growing as a business. It means that you want to learn more about these customers. So I can't speak for Fivetran's pricing. I can't speak for Databricks. I don't know anyone, if you were asked if they would pay less, who wouldn't want to pay less? I, of course, would like to pay less, but I would say the value that we get from Databricks and Fivetran meets exactly what we're looking to do to serve our customers. And I think it depends on the tool. Like right now, we have a lot of tailwind. The market downturn has been kind of a commercial for Catalyst because our tool is designed to prevent churn. Our tool is designed to help you drive upsell revenue. And that's what businesses are looking for right now. So the more data that we have, the more valuable it is. So I would say we're not hurting in paying that data just yet. But certainly I can see how that pricing model is going to be increasing. And
Second, quick question. So you mentioned that you want to. It's very important to hire the right people, not just the very talented people. So for an interview, usually like a couple of hours. I wonder what I ask a lot of leaders like, what's the skill to hire the right people? For example, you mentioned people care about customers. So what things you can identify within a couple of hours?
I think early on, the one thing that we failed to do that we've done now is we really codified our values. Meaning if you are the founder of your company, you should have a set of beliefs and values that are not negotiable. And I think we didn't have that firm opinion early on. We have an opinion, but we didn't have a firm one codified, and now we do. As an example, one of our values is being transparent. And if in an interview, I feel like for any second you are not transparent, you're not going to get hired. And I think for us, like that's something that we're very much model ourselves, and we stick to our codified values. And yeah, that would be my advice: is be very opinionated about the culture that you want to create, and do not make exceptions. If at least for me, whenever in the history where I'm like, this person's okay, but they don't really fit that, but they're kind of really good at the one thing that we need. 99% of the time, those turned out to be the incorrect hires.
Yeah, I'll just speak to a couple of those as well. From a hiring perspective, working backwards, a couple of the frameworks that I use are, I want to see someone actually in an experiential interview, right? So asking, especially because I interview a lot of salespeople, any salesperson should be able to crush any interview because their whole career is about creating clear communications and helping people understand the value of something. So when you interview someone in sales about themselves, it would be crazy if they couldn't give you good answers. The real trick is to put them in experiential situations. And what I like to do is think through a customer challenge that I'm facing right now and ask them, basically we role play, and I say, all right, I'm the customer, you're the salesperson, here's my situation, what would you do? And in sales, and frankly in any role, you said you used to sell, you're the CEO, you're still selling. In any role, you have to be able to think on your feet a little bit, and you have to be able to react to new inputs, new data. And so to me, it's like asking people to tell me a story about XYZ thing, not super effective. Asking them to actually live out a scenario that I personally am struggling with, not only do I get value out of that because I'm learning, but I also see how they operate under pressure. The other thing I think about before hiring and also after hiring is this concept of skill versus will. So if you think about a 2x2 matrix where you're measuring someone's skill and you're measuring someone's will, skill can be coached, will cannot be coached. And so to the extent that you can explore someone's will, their intrinsic motivation, a lot of times I ask about mistakes. I did that with Edward, but in interviews I ask about mistakes because I like to see how people attribute the cause of the mistake, whether it's an internal locus of control or an external locus of control. I think it really helps if someone says, well, I couldn't have done it better because XYZ external forces, like I would wonder if that person will actually learn and build some self-awareness from facing adversity. And it's really important, especially in go-to-market, especially in this market, that we learn and we get better when we're facing adversity. So that's question 2. Question 1 was about the pricing model. I'd love to talk to you more about that just to understand the concerns. But what Edward talked about was the consumption model. I think more broadly, the question I would ask you and your team, if there are concerns about exploding, ballooning costs, is compared to what? Because if you're just comparing it to what money that you could spend on a different tool, I can see why if you're using a lot of data, it might feel like an expensive investment, but the alternative is doing nothing, doing your own bespoke internal build, which is frankly our biggest competitor at Fivetran, is just the brute force of data engineers who have spent their whole careers building and rebuilding data pipelines, or going with your legacy solution that you already have. And often those solutions end up costing you way, way more because they're brittle and they require that you fix them all the time and APIs change. And so when you're looking at a tool that solves a lot of those problems, you want to think about the value drivers, which are risk mitigation, cost reduction, revenue acceleration, and time to market acceleration. And those would be the metrics that I would use to analyze whether a tool is too expensive. And then when you're able to leverage a consumption model, you're only paying for what you use. So it's hard for us on the Fivetran side because we can't recognize any revenue unless you actually consume the data or send data through, which makes us extremely aligned with our customers. And I think that's also an ethos that's critical when you're thinking about what tool to invest in, that the incentives are deeply aligned between the success of the vendor and the success of your business. And that's what a consumption model enables both a Catalyst and a Fivetran to accomplish. Thanks for asking. I think we had another one.
Is there a reason why people should not go to Fivetran? And how would you talk them into going to Fivetran? And then also, do you have a calculator on determining that ROI to help us determine whether this path is the right way to go, and talk to us in terms of these are the benefits? You mentioned it, but I wanted to understand a little bit more. How do you measure that ROI, and do you help us with that?
Yeah. What perspective are you coming from? Are you a developer? Are you a business person? Developer? Okay. So we were talking about the value drivers. And I think just to play back your question, it's why would anyone not use Fivetran? I don't know. Why would anyone not use Fivetran? No, but I'll speak to the specifics. I think the model in itself, the pricing model, can scare people away because it's not as predictable as a legacy license-based model. So we'll get into that. But the other question you asked is, how do you help people understand the ROI? Honestly, my favorite way of looking at this is compared to what, right? This is what we're talking about in terms of things being expensive, but the alternative state, we sit down with our prospective customers and say, okay, what is your current state? How are you getting data from legacy databases or from SaaS tools into a place where you can actually analyze and act on it? Okay, current state. What are the negative consequences of that current state? And it's a painful conversation, and actually, it's an art from a go-to-market perspective to help usher someone through sitting in the pain of building and rebuilding and dealing with optimizing and just maintaining data pipelines. And so then it is our responsibility to help you then see, okay, what could a future state look like? What could the positive business outcomes be associated with that future state? And that is how we help people. You asked how you help people see the light of, okay, this is a new way of doing things, especially in the enterprise when we're dealing with a lot of legacy systems. Luckily, we do really well with high volume data replication from things like SAP and Oracle and big databases. And then it's in our DNA to do well with SaaS tools and constantly changing APIs. We take that all out of off your plate in our managed service. But to try and succinctly summarize, any company that needs to move their data and needs to use it in a way that's actionable and use it in Databricks and leverage it for something like Catalyst, Fivetran should be a no-brainer. Thank you for asking. I think there was a question up front. The gentleman up front? Yeah. We did lose the mic, however. Oh, we're at time. Okay, well, one more question or no more questions? What do you think? Do you want to be the final word?
Oh, he's bringing the mic.
Well, we will stick, how about this? We will stick around and we'd be happy to answer questions directly. So 1, 2, 3, please come chat with us. We'd love to speak with you. And in the meantime, thank you to all of you who came at the end of the day to sit through a conversation between Edward and myself. And thank you, Edward, for sharing so much about your business.
Thank you, everyone.
It's really fun.